Hey, Brian.
Hey, Dean.
Okay, Brian. So I have a question. Uh,
Yes, sir.
uh, um, After you tell folks who you are, that would be nice. Thank you for doing that. Can you explain what a fractional CMO is, and then what a fractional CMO typically does in the first 90 days of like 1 year engagement?
Good question. Good question. Well, I am a fractional CMO. I'm also a growth expert and a marketing mentor. I like to help businesses and individuals achieve their goals through strategic marketing and frameworks. And those frameworks help simplify the complex and help create measurable goal focused outcomes. And so, with all that said, what is a fractional CMO? A fractional CMO is someone who belongs in your C suite,
Mm-hmm.
right? They belong in that decision making group that helps lead and guide the company. And that's one of the biggest differentiations between, say, a fractional CMO and other part time or fractional roles. And so within the first 90 days, what I like to do is I like to explore and discover and create a strategic plan. Because if you don't have a plan, you don't really know where you're going. And if
Right.
you don't have a plan, it's easy to get stuck into tactical execution, which completely derails the process and devalues your role as a fractional CMO. So that's what I do is I hop in and start to explore and facilitate developing a strategic plan for the next year or so that is goal focused. It has goals, strategies, execution, and resources to be able to do all that. So that's how I start off.
All right. Um, Mark, hi.
Hey guys, hey Dean, how are you?
Good, thank you. Okay, Mark. So let's talk about our hypothetical 1 year engagement in today's day one, right? Tell folks a little bit about you and tell folks about what the first 90 days looks like when you start an engagement.
I'm Marc Fuentes. I'm a fractional CMO. I started as a marketer 24 years ago. It's a long time. When marketing was more structured, you had things like the 4 Ps and things like that. Today, everything is more fluid, it's more agile, it's more fast moving. So a lot of small organizations, tech startups, I'm in there helping them really look at their market from different angles, get their attention they deserve in the marketplace, because most times the smaller tech outfits typically have a better product, a better service, and ultimately a better experience. And once I get in there, I work with them to structure how they scale. Typically, they're struggling with finding marketing dollars and figuring out how to pragmatically invest those dollars. The first 90 days of any engagement, I look at a couple of things, really four things. First of all, I look at, do they have a good understanding of who their customers are? When last have they really had a conversation with customers? How does that value proposition that they've been communicating to me resting with the customers that they're speaking to?
Right.
What's the competitive set or DNA that's in the marketplace? What is the last campaign they've executed? What was those results? And then I start to build a roadmap around those areas. Because if you don't understand your customers, building a plan at that level is really a plan that's have failure all over it. So I start with the very nucleus of who those customers are. Do we understand them intimately? And how do we serve them better than they're being served in the marketplace?
Okay. So then, Mark, let's like shift perspective and imagine that I'm the client's CEO. Okay. I probably had to, get agreement from someone, even if it was only my alter ego, to put aside spend, right? And budget out to hire a fractional CMO for a year, right? How am I getting, like, what should I do or not do? Because so that I can squeeze every last cent of value out of that fractional CMO in the 12 months that I've signed up for.
Absolutely. So I think in the first, that first 3 months, understanding that level of customer DNA allows me to build that plan,
Mm-hmm.
allows me to go back and outline key goals, key objectives that we want to achieve for that particular year, and lay out a structured, basically 60-day sprints to hit those goals, hit those objectives. Above and beyond that is looking at where does this company want to be in 2 years' time, because I look at it, even though we're looking at a year, you want to know where you want to be in 2 years. So you're
Right.
setting the foundation in this first year to be able to get to the goals you have for year 2. Even though sometimes you don't have those goals really clearly articulated, in some cases, you know where you want to be in your second year. And that's really important for me because I lay out those 60-day sprints to ensure that I'm keeping that North Star where it needs to be, but guiding the ground troops and guiding the plan and the execution at that level as well.
Yeah. Brian, what do you think? If I'm the CEO, how am I gonna? Or if you want to, how do I get maximum value out of my 1 year with you? Or if I can invert it, how do companies bring in a fractional CMO and then waste that money?
Absolutely. So, one of the most important things a company can do is bring in a fractional CMO and then allow them to execute on their process, right? My process includes understanding the market, developing a message that resonates with your target audience, and then developing that map or facilitating that map that goes through the goal, strategies, execution, and resources needed. What happens to derail that process is when a leader in a company decides that their fractional CMO is a one-man marketing band. Because that all of a sudden puts you into a very tactical or firefighting mode as to what are you doing today? Biggest fire first, right? And that can very easily derail your strategic plan and take you out of following goal-focused paths towards achievement and growth.
Okay. Okay, so then let's shift perspectives again. Brian, stay with me for a second.
Yeah.
And okay, so there's a marketing team, let's say, in this company, right? This is mostly probably junior and mid-level folks, maybe someone who's like ostensibly a manager, right? But no one at the leadership role, no one at like the leadership level, CMO kind of. If I'm looking at my marketing team, I'm the CEO, say, and I'm looking at my marketing department, and today's day one of bringing in a fractional CMO. Like, what should my marketing team? How should it be different at the end of, let's say, 12 months? Like, how is it better or how is it different than it was the day before you showed up?
That's one of my favorite scenarios to be put
Yeah.
into. I love growing people in teams, and especially marketing people who tend to get stuck in the firefighting role, right?
Right.
I come into the office today and I have to do this tactical execution. I have to do that tactical execution. The challenge is they don't get a chance to grow themselves and their careers and their opportunity to provide better value for their company if they're stuck in tactical execution all the time. The other challenge to that is the fact that they don't have the guidance to learn to become more strategic. And so that's one of the key initiatives anytime I walk into a company and they have a marketing department, especially a marketing manager or a marketing director, is to help those marketing people up-level their own careers by learning to become more strategic, more goal-focused, and find the balance between tactical execution and strategic development. So that can be an incredibly valuable skill and transfer coaching project for a company that brings me in as a fractional CMO.
Okay. And Mark, what do you think? Like, how should how will, once the fractional CMO is brought in, how will the marketing team, the marketing department, be different at the end of that fractional CMO's engagement than they were the day before it started?
Yeah, I think just a simple mantra of values for myself is, leaving a place better than you found it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think based on that sort of principle, I typically look at areas that you can help the marketing team start to ask better questions. By asking better questions, they start to get the voice of the organization and the ears too as well. Because typically, marketing is that function that they tend to only get the accolades by seeing activity and quantity in the marketplace. And that seems to be your marketing is doing a good job. And typically, that's the wrong way of measuring marketing. And that's something that needs to change. So, the ability is how do you get those new marketing folks that you've just inherited as a fractional CMO to ask better questions, to start looking at the business from a different lens. I talk about working in the business and working on the business, and there's
Right.
two different scenarios. And I try to get marketers to work really on the business more, so that when they're grabbing the attention of their leaders, they can say, hey, that person is asking different questions of the business, and it's probably the time to elevate that person again into another role to help push the business further along. The second piece I'll add to that, Dean, is I also open up my network based on meeting these marketing people, where I think their careers want to be by having that conversation. Where do you want to be in a year, 2 years? And open up my network to different people that I think can help them and guide them as well. And there's certain areas that in my marketing background that I may not have the depth of knowledge, but I do know people in my network that can offer that path to the marketing director or marketing manager. So I think it's a combination of really using your network, combination of understanding where these people want to be and getting them to think more about the business rather than just, I need to execute this email, execute this plan. We need to do those things. But you need to be asking further questions around the business. How does it grow? How is unit economics changing? What can I change? And how can I drive this change across the business? Not as a marketer, but as a business person. I think that changes the marketing person into a business person, and that's
Right.
important.
All right, so let's talk about a person. So imagine that your mom comes to you and says, "Hey, my friend's kid just started their first marketing job, full-time job out of college, okay? And that company just brought in a fractional CMO. Do you have any advice on what my friend's kid should do or try to learn or whatever in the year that they're going to have some exposure to someone like that fractional CMO?" So, like, Mark, what do you think? How would you advise that kid?
I think a couple of things you wanna ask. You wanna ask that fractional CMO, how do they think about strategy? What are the frameworks they use to understand a market? How do they actually look at the connection between marketing and sales? How does that business truly allow that next level to be unpacked? The next question I would ask this individual to ask of the fractional CMO is, tell me why you've made the move to a fractional CMO. What was the driving force in your own career? Because you would have been a full-time person like me at some point in time. What was that driving force to move you into the fractional world? I think the last piece too, as well, is really important that I got asked a question recently is kind of why marketing on the whole, right? And I think that's an important distinction, because most people think marketing is advertising and websites, and that is not marketing. Marketing is about understanding customers,
Right.
creating value, delivering value, and managing value. And if you can do that framework with a fractional CMO around those 4 questions, how do you understand customers? How do you create value? How do you manage value? How do you deliver value? I think those are the things I would ask. I would make sure that individual is asking the new fractional CMO.
Brian, I want to ask that question slightly differently. I like throwing you these curveballs, okay? So let's get all Star Trekky. There's been something weird in the timeline, and all of a sudden, there's another Brian, but that dude is 24, just got his first marketing job at a marketing team, and you're also the fractional CMO. What do you go to younger Brian and say, "Look, man, like, I know how some of this is going to play out. So, like, here's what I think you should be doing with your life as at the start of your marketing career." By the way,
Learn how to
I
get
asked this
done.
question last week, and the person answered with the same thing just happened to me, and they were talking about it, and I said, "What?" And it turns out they weren't making. It turns out the timeline was just fine. It's that they were talking about the other thing. So just so we're clear, the timeline's fine. But, like, what would you have told, or what would you tell young Brian today if you were face to face with young Brian, younger Brian?
Um,
Because you're only like 30, I can tell. So
Thanks, Dean. I
sure,
appreciate that. $20 in the mail heading your way.
thank you. Thank you.
Um, I think one of the most important things I would tell a younger version who wants to get into marketing and leadership and helping shape and grow businesses would be to grab onto your mentors,
Mm-hmm.
right? Identify people who are doing what you want to be doing down the road, or people who are exceptional, and grab onto them as mentors and coaches. I had some great mentors and coaches when I was young and starting off my career. It helped shape my career, helped me shift paths appropriately. But I learned a lot from them, right? And you ask the simple questions. How do you do what you do, right? And while that seems like a very simple question to ask, it can be a much harder question to answer because a lot of times we get into this and we grow through our experiences and through our expertise, and we don't stop to think about how we do what we do. But by doing that, essentially you can create frameworks that you can then help coach and mentor other marketers by giving them a framework to start or their foundations, build their foundations, and grow their own careers with. And so I think that's really an essential move, is to help really pick the brains of people who can be coaches and mentors for you.
And Mark, what do you think? Actually, Brian, I have one more question I want to hit you with, and then I'm going to ask Mark the same question. And I'm not trying to be rude,
Mhm.
but I mean, there are easier ways to make a living, right? Come on. Why do this job? Like, why do this job? Why?
For me,
Yeah, for you.
I'm a fractional CMO because I focus my business on SMBs. I think
Right.
that's where I can make the biggest
Mhm.
impact, right? And I think that's where I can build the best relationships. And that's where my work makes a difference, not only for the companies, but also for the
Right.
people and the teams within the companies. And I was a high school teacher. I taught at the university level at one point, and that is truly who I am and what I do. I'm a marketing mentor.
Right.
And at this point in my career, I get a lot of satisfaction out of helping grow other people's careers in marketing, show them the paths, help them with the shortcuts, and get them to move in the direction that's going to make a better life for them and better outcomes for the company they work with.
So they're your people.
They're my people.
Right. And Mark, how about you? Like, why do this? Why?
Yeah, I think you get a chance to choose who you work with.
Mm-hmm.
Having been and choose who you want to work with. I think having been in the marketing field for over 20 years, there's some things you can go back and you can look back and say, hey, that may not be some of the right movements back then. So this fractional world allows me to really do three things: choose who I want to work with, choose the people and the organizations that I think want to be challenged, want to have a change orientation in the marketplace, and certainly open to thinking and trying new concepts. And the third piece is the ability to really help a function that I think that continues to grapple with really low tenure in the corporate world and
Mm-hmm.
figure out how to help them become much more business oriented, because I
Right.
think that's the challenge with marketers. People tend to look at us from a lens of, well, websites, SEO, marketing, like email, all the things we do under the hood that makes brands comes to life. And I think that's the piece I would hope through fractional work, that we change the marketing narrative where it's a business concept ingrained in businesses. And that's why I do the fractional work, that over time, us all fractionals can help that movement.
Yeah. So, Mark, both you guys actually, like, thanks very much. I really appreciate this being here today. Mark, who should contact you, and how should they do it?
Yeah, when I'm not helping friends and families and fractional people, certainly my area is really tech startups and tech
Mm-hmm.
scale ups, organizations that are just coming on, looking for product market fit, or looking for go to market fit. Anyone that's probably below 5 million in ARR, those are the people that I like to help scale. Um, I operate within North America, and certainly have one client outside of North America. You can reach me on LinkedIn. I'm always there. I'm always hopping on. I'm always commenting, and looking forward to connecting with you. And if there's a problem you're looking at, a challenge you want to explore, I'm happy to have a 15-minute discovery call.
Cool. And Brian.
Yeah, any SMB,
Mm-hmm.
B2B focused service business between 2 and 20 million. That's my sweet spot.
Right.
And especially, I'm starting a new program now for those marketing managers, marketing directors, and even marketing VPs who are in situations where they've advanced their careers, but they they feel stuck. They don't have the foundations, they don't have the frameworks. And so that's kind of a separate thing. And like I said, because they're my people, that's where I'm putting a lot of focus now, is to helping grow those people for not only their own careers, but also for adding more value and changing what marketing is for their companies. So that's all available at thevaluecmo.com.
All right, guys, thank you, both of you, so much for being here today. This has been fantastic. Thanks for watching. You're probably watching this on a clip if the stats show anything, but thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye, Mark. Bye, Brian, and see you later, everyone.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you, Dean.